He fires into the dark at a figure he's convinced is a ghost, then hears a very human scream. Minutes later, the haunting becomes a homicide. By the end, you'll understand how a London ghost panic turned ordinary men into armed vigilantes, why an innocent tradesman died, and how the courtroom tried and struggled to assign guilt. A single rumor weaponized an entire neighborhood, and the consequence wasn't a scary story. It was a body, a shattered family, and a legal precedent that still echoes whenever fear is used as a defense. When a community convinces itself it's being hunted by a ghost who's actually responsible when someone pulls the trigger. A single shot cracks the night air. A figure drops in the road. For a moment, everything is still. Then the shouting starts. People run toward the body. Others back away as if the street itself is cursed. Because the man who fired claims he did it for the same reason everyone has been out after dark, to stop a ghost. Not a metaphor, not a rumor, he laughed off. A ghost that has been stalking the lanes of Hammersmith. And now, someone is dead. The shooter stands there, shaken and stubborn, saying he was protecting the neighborhood. But the body on the ground is not a spirit. It is a human being, so the question snaps into focus with the smoke still hanging in the air. If a town is terrified and a man believes he sees a monster, what happens when fear pulls the trigger? And in that first stunned moment, another question hovers over the crowd. If this wasn't the ghost, where is it now? Hammersmith is not a battlefield. It is a riverside place of narrow roads, low lamps, and dark hedgerows. At night, the edges of the town dissolve into fields and footpaths. It is easy to imagine shapes there, and for weeks, people have been doing more than imagining. There are stories of a white figure, a pale shape that rises out of the dark and rushes toward lone walkers. It is seen near churchyards, on quiet lanes, along paths where the fog sits heavy. Some say it glides, some say it lurches. Some swear it spoke, others say it only stared. But the details change. The fear stays. Neighbors stop walking alone. Parents call children home before dusk. Men bring clubs and pistols out from drawers that have been closed for years. And each new sighting makes the last one sound more believable. Because when a community expects to see something, the dark starts to cooperate. Whispers move faster than the river. Each retelling grows teeth. Now the town is no longer waiting for the ghost to appear. It is hunting for it. So who is this figure in white? And why is Hammersmith so ready to believe it is not human? Fear does something predictable. It gathers, not in one place, but in minds. And then, sometimes, it gathers in the street. Men begin to organize themselves. Not officials, not constables with orders. Just residents. They form watch groups. They agree on meeting points. They talk about where it was last seen. They decide which lanes to patrol. And they carry weapons that make them feel less helpless. A sword cane, a bludgeon, a pistol. There is talk of courage. There is also talk of humiliation, because no one wants to be the one who runs. No one wants to be the one who admits they are scared of a story. But at the same time, no one wants to be the one who finds out the story is true. In this kind of atmosphere, a shadow is not just a shadow, it is evidence. A flutter of cloth is a warning. A stranger walking alone becomes suspicious before he even speaks. And a man who means well can start to act like a hunter. So when the night comes that ends in a gunshot, how many decisions have already been made for the shooter? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far. And the one detail that still doesn't fit. Before the shot, there were weeks of sightings, footsteps, shapes, whispers, and not one witness could agree on what they saw. So why did the town settle on one story, Anyway, pause the ghost story for 1 second, because the most frightening thing here isn't the apparition, it's how quickly normal people agreed to go hunting, and the first hunt ends with a body. On the night that matters, the air is cold enough to make breath visible. The streets are darker than usual, not because the lamps are out, but because attention has moved. Every eye is scanning the gaps between pools of light. A man is out with a weapon. He is not a thief. He is not drunk on trouble. He believes he is doing a duty. He has heard the stories. Maybe he has seen something himself. And he is not alone in the belief that the ghost will show. Then someone appears. A pale figure. It steps into view in a way that makes the heart jump first and the mind catch up later. The watcher calls out. There is no clear answer. Or maybe the answer is lost in distance and nerves. The figure keeps coming, or seems to. The watcher raises the pistol. It is the kind of moment that lasts half a second and then lasts forever. Because the shot is fired, and the figure falls. When people get closer, they see cloth. They see a face. They see blood. They see a man who had a name, not a haunting. Not a spirit, a person. So what did the shooter truly see in that instant before the gun went off? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. The patrols weren't led by police. They were led by neighbors with sticks, pistols, and a plan. Who decided that fear gave them the right to hunt the streets at night? Now imagine being the victim. You step into the street and realize you've been mistaken for a monster. Then you see the gun raised, and there's no time left to explain. The dead man is not a stranger to the earth. He is not a rumor. He is local enough that the loss spreads fast. People who did not fear the ghost now fear something else. They fear the town itself. Because if you can be mistaken for a ghost, then anyone can. A coat that catches moonlight. A sack of flour. A white apron. A bedshirt worn because you are sick or because you rose from sleep. Suddenly, ordinary things look dangerous. The shooter is taken in, not by a mob, by the machinery of law, but even that is complicated. Because many in the town have been part of the same effort. They have joined the Watchers. They have promised to stop the ghost. Some had even talked about shooting it. So blame does not settle easily. Sympathy does not either. In private, some people think it could have been me. Others think it should never have been anyone. Now the case becomes a test, not just of one man, of what happens when a community acts as its own police. But when the story goes to court, what will matter more? What the shooter believed, or what was true? The ghost didn't just appear. Someone described it in detail, then the details spread like a script. Was this a haunting, or a rumor engineered to make people see what they expected? Here's the twist the court can't avoid. The shooter might be wrong, but he might not be lying. And that forces one brutal question. Can honest fear still be criminal? The courtroom is a different kind of darkness. Not night, but uncertainty. A life has ended, and the law has to decide what that ending means. The shooter stands before a judge. There is no escaping the basic fact. He fired. The man died, yet the defense is built on fear and mistake, on a claim that the shooter did not intend to kill an innocent. He intended to stop a threat, and he believed the threat was real. The prosecution brings it back to basics. A person cannot be killed because someone else is frightened. A gun cannot become lawful simply because the night is strange. Witnesses speak. Some describe the ghost sightings. Some describe the dead man's clothing. Some describe the dead man's clothing. Some describe the dead man's clothing that was shouted. Some argue over whether any warning was heard at all. The room listens for a line between accident and crime, between fear and responsibility. And beneath it all is the real question the jurors cannot avoid. How do you measure reason in a world full of superstition? If everyone is afraid, does that make fear more reasonable or less? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. On the night of the killing, the victim is doing something painfully ordinary in the wrong place at the wrong time. What made the shooter certain this stranger wasn't a man at all? Forget the trial transcript for a moment, because one small detail about the ghost description keeps repeating, and it points to someone who wanted this panic to spread. There is a phrase that will hang over this trial, a phrase about intent, because the shooter's mind is put on trial almost as much as his actions. Did he mean to kill the man he hit? Or did he mean to kill something else? And if he meant to kill a ghost, what does that even mean in law? The court cannot put the supernatural on the witness stand. It can only deal with the human facts. A weapon, a decision, a dead body. The decision. A dead body. The defense leans on the panic of the time, the fear that had gripped the town. The repeated reports that something white and violent was jumping out at people. The idea that any reasonable person might have believed they were in danger. The prosecution pushes back. It is not enough to be scared. You must have a reason to shoot. A real, present danger. Not a story. Not a shape. Not a suspicion. Because if suspicion can justify killing, then the law collapses. The jury is asked to do something subtle. To step into that dark lane for a moment, to borrow the shooter's eyes, to feel his heartbeat, and then to return to daylight and judge him anyway. So what is the standard here? The standard of a calm afternoon, or the standard of a terrified night? After the gunshot, the neighborhood doesn't react like witnesses to an accident. It reacts like a jury that's already reached a verdict. Who were they protecting? The dead man or the man who fired? Listen closely to the witnesses, because they aren't describing the same night. They're describing the story they heard after. And that's when the truth starts to slip. While the lawyers argue, the town keeps living, but it lives differently. Because now there are two stories in Hammersmith. One is the ghost, the other is the killing. The ghost story had been exciting in a sick way. It gave people a shared mystery. It gave them something to talk about. The killing story is heavier. It has a name. It has grief. It has a family that must wake up each day in a world that keeps moving. And it has an uncomfortable mirror for everyone who joined the watches. They remember the nights they went out hoping to see something. They remember how brave they felt with friends beside them. And they remember how quickly a person can look like a threat when you are out hunting. Some people stop talking about the ghost, others talk about it even more. Because the human mind does not like admitting it was fooled. It would rather insist it was right. It would rather say, the ghost is real, and this was a tragic mistake, than say, there was never a ghost at all. So the town begins to split, not into good and bad, but into those who cling to the haunting and those who cling to the law. And the pressure builds around the jury when they decide, will they be judging one man or judging the whole town's fear? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. The shooter doesn't claim cruelty. He claims terror, and he claims he acted to defend the public. But what if the real danger that night wasn't the figure in white, but the men chasing it? The case turns on a single, chilling possibility. If the town created the ghost together, then the killing wasn't a lone mistake. It was the final act of a group delusion. The verdict comes down, and whatever it is, it cannot bring back the dead. It can only say what the killing was. A murder. Or something less. Or something that slips between categories. The court's decision is not just about punishment. It is a message. It tells people what the law expects from them when the world feels uncertain. It tells them whether fear can excuse violence, or whether fear makes the duty to be careful even stronger. But the case does not end when the judge speaks, because legal rulings ripple outward. They become precedent. They become the story other courts will rely on. They become the reason future defendants will point and say, "This is like that," and this case, with its ghost and its vigilantes, forces the law to say something about mistake. About self-defense. About how far a citizen can go when they believe the authorities are not protecting them. The verdict draws a line, yet lines in law are often drawn in ink that later generations must darken. So what line did this trial actually draw, and would it hold when the next frightened shooter claimed he made the same kind of mistake? After the trial, the nights in Hammersmith do not instantly become safe. Not in people's minds. The ghost does not vanish just because a court speaks. If anything, the haunting can grow, because now it has tragedy attached to it. A death makes a story stick. It gives it weight. It gives it a reason to be repeated. And so the question comes back. Was there ever a ghost at all? Maybe there was a prank. Someone in a sheet, enjoying the power of making others jump. Maybe there was a troubled person, using the dark to frighten people for sport. Maybe there were several unrelated incidents that the town stitched together. Or maybe it was exactly what so many hauntings are. A collection of mistakes, misread shapes, unexpected encounters, imagination fueled by dread. But even if the ghost was only a rumor, the fear was real, and the bullet was real, and the man who died was real. That is what makes this story last. It is not just a tale of superstition. It is a warning about what happens when neighbors turn into hunters, and when certainty is built from whispers. So here is the final question, the one that refuses to settle. When a community is frightened enough, what is more dangerous in the dark? The thing everyone thinks they saw, or what they are willing to do because of it?